Welcome to the Opinion of Love podcast. It's your boy, and we're back talking about the Crusades again. I want to make an announcement really quick. It's kind of unfortunate. Sam will be taking a temporary leave of absence from the podcast for probably a few months. He had some family issues and had to move back to Mexico. And in the meantime, I will be holding down the podcast by myself. We will be establishing a content network with him down in Mexico to pursue some of his journalism. And I will be looking for call recorders to see if we can maybe have him phone in whenever he has the time. But other than that, it will just be me for probably the next 6 months, I'd say. So I decided to organize the notes of this crusade, this part of the crusade, into characters, logistics, politics, and battles. Now, when I go through the characters, I'm not going to mention them again unless anything happens to them. Because last time we had to deal with 30 million fucking characters and it was too much. So, first is Emperor Alexius, the Byzantine Emperor. We mentioned him before. Later into the book, he becomes this very shrewd politician. He basically turned around the Byzantine Empire from something that was failing into almost what Rome had once been. And the descriptions of the Byzantine Empire from the Crusaders were that it was this veritable land of just opulence, and that they had everything you could dream of. He also did some interesting political moves. Later, we'll talk about that when I get there. Bohemond of Taranto, this was the southern Italian Norman. He had experience in the area, pretty reasonable military commander. He had fought Muslims before. Robert of Normandy, nothing else is mentioned about him besides the fact that he has considerable military experience. He was paired up with Bohemond. Raymond de Laus, we've mentioned him as well. He wanted to be the supreme commander. Didn't get to be the supreme commander as far as I know. He was the leader of the French and the Provençals. Provençals are essentially just a small ethnic group within France at the time. And they had been following him for quite a little bit. Godfrey of Bouillon, we talked about him, 16-year-old asshole who led the Germans and Lotharingians. Fucking these people need to come up with better names for shit. And Abbot Baldwin. This dude is interesting. You know, when people showed up at the crusade, they're like, give me that cloth cross, my man. And he's like, nah, that's not dedicated enough. Go get that piece of metal, heat that shit up, press it into my forehead. This became a huge trend after he did it because people just really liked branding themselves at the time. You know, that's how you do it back then. You want to get a tattoo? Not branded. Wu-Tang. The logistics of this operation are that there were roughly 7,000 knights, 35,000 armed infantry, and 20 to 60,000 non-combatants. These non-combatants were essentially the retinues of knights and logistical crews. So, for those of you who don't know what a retinue is, think you're balling like a motherfucker, right? You got the most pimp shit in the game. You got like 5 or 6 servants who come around and clean up your sword. They sharpen stuff. They make sure your saddle is good. They check the armor to make sure it's not breaking. Another thing logistically was that the crusade was a legal binding action. If you showed up and said, hey, I want to go kill some Muslims, maybe some Jews along the way. See, it depends on how I feel at the moment. You know, like I got jacked by some dude at the market. He didn't say he was Jewish, but I really think he is. If you went, you were bound by the church to not desert. Didn't stop people from deserting in droves. People, once they got like halfway down to the first sieges at Nicaea across the Bosphorus, they were like, you know what? Fuck this. I don't want to be here anymore. This clearly sucks because no one established a line of supply. Like, there's no food. We're all just rolling around the countryside, just pillaging shit because we have nothing better to do because they're like, you know what, let's cut costs and not establish a line of supply, which is the first thing you got to do in a war. If you don't have a strong economy or a line of supply, you're going to fail. Surprisingly, they didn't. Mostly because Emperor Alexius was just like, you know what, I'm going to throw a lot of resources at these guys because this is way more than I was expecting. I wanted like 300 dudes. You brought me 600,000. If they didn't have those lines of supply, they would have absolutely failed. Now, there's a lot of thought that greed was what motivated the Crusaders. evidence that none of them came back ballin' proves that that's wrong. Most of them really just wanted to be forgiven of their sins. Oh, that's rough. My fucking recorder's down to one battery stick. Bet I can do it. I bet I can do it. Okay, so none of them came back ballin'. I mean, the princes, they had to give up huge amounts of land. Now, when I was reading this, this made me wonder if this is how the church got to be as powerful as it is today, because the amount of just economic activity that was going on beforehand, like with real estate, was insane. In order to fund the crusade, the average knight had to raise 5 times their annual income. So in order to do that, these guys would sell estates, they would sell weapons, they would strip jewels from reliquaries. Reliquaries are basically just like you have a trophy room, basically. You have a bunch of swords that you took, you have some jewels, cool shit that you want to ball off, and you want to flex on people, you get a reliquary. That's what I'm telling you. When I get stupid rich from all my, like, I don't know, I was just watching the political hearing going on today about the FBI report. When I do all my favors for Saudi princes, I'm going to have a reliquary in there. All diamonds. Not chocolate diamonds, I'm not a bitch, all regular diamonds. So this was another thing that caused it. Now, the law of primogeniture, people think that this was a main cause because princes couldn't inherit land. Not really true. Because what I mentioned, so much land is being sold off, and all of it was at a fraction of its actual value. See, the thing about the crusade was people wanted to go and fight. People were poor. Even the rich people weren't balling enough to get their gear. So the church at this point had more land than it could handle and too little money to buy it. Just think about that for a second. They have so much land, there's literally not enough money. Now, the only reason we know this is because the French kept pretty good records for the time. And the way they recorded things were kind of odd. They would do accounting, but also tell stories in the middle. So all of what we know kind of comes from these documents. We find out from this that most nobles were illiterate and that monks were writing these documents. So the church essentially, no matter what, had power over estates because the nobles couldn't read what they were signing, which is a huge trend in history if you haven't noticed. And the people who could read were writing the contracts that determine the sale. So what you're getting here is some massively skewed deals. This is the worst deal in the history of trade deals. And they're getting jacked, basically. All these nobles, there's a story in here that one prince had to strip all the jewels from his reliquary to pay for a castle. And that castle was sold at a fraction of its cost at 1,300 silver marks. It just created this huge economic rush. Once again, I think that's why the church is as powerful as it is today, because I don't know how much money they got. I don't think anyone does, but if they establish this huge control over Western Europe, then what's stopping them from also being able to sell that land when it gets back up to its full value after the Crusades? I wonder. I don't know too much about what the Vatican did and their whole history, but that seems like a pretty good motivator. Now, the knights were religious fanatics. They were raised to believe that there's this thing called millenarism. Essentially, the apocalypse is always coming, and it's going to be way too fast. It's going to come in your lifetime, dude. It's literally happening right now. The church said, well, you got to care about the spiritual piety of you and all your dead family members. So, let's make a deal here, bro. If you give us some of that sweet money you got there, we'll think about forgiving you a little bit, but you got to give us a lot of money, and then you got to sign off your land into our care when you die. Otherwise, you got to sign a malediction clause, which for those of you who don't know what a malediction clause is, because I didn't know what it is, It's literally an insurance policy that means if you sell your land to someone else after you die, you go to hell. The church is fucking you on every front here. Now, the thing that kind of jumped out to me the most was, besides all this logistical stuff going on in Europe, nobody planned for the actual logistics of the crusade. Armies weren't together. They mostly established into ethnic groups and language groups. They all went and left at different times. The earliest one left in like July of 1096, if I remember correctly, and the last one left in like fucking September, I think. They all got there at different times. Emperor Alexius was really, really questionable about the whole crusade, because what he had experienced with the People's Crusade was, this is a bunch of shitty people. I don't want them coming through my empire because I got some cool shit going on here. I don't really want them to ruin it. Now, there was a little bit of naval support. I mean, Pope Urban went to Italy, which was the major naval power at the time, and he asked Sicily and some other town, I don't fucking remember, if they can hook him up, and they're like, nah, B, we're not going to hook. Why do we want to go down there? You're not going to be able to pay us enough. You literally don't have enough money to pay for the land you want to buy. How are you going to pay us? And essentially what happened was the church footed the bill onto the Byzantine Empire, and the Byzantine Empire, mostly Emperor Alexius, said, I'll give you stipends to feed your troops. I'll give you a ton of money. They said that Godfrey of Bouillon got literally mounds of gold, which I don't believe. That sounds like some fucking mythology shit. Like, oh, this guy, Scrooge McDuckicus, found the secret reliquary of Conrad Kurz, and there was all kinds of gold and diamonds. It doesn't sound like that, because whose economy was that strong? I mean, I get he's an emperor, but there's no way he was like, I'll give you mounds of gold. This is my entire economy, basically. I'll give you all of it. He's probably like, you know what? I'll give you like 100 grand. That good? So you can buy all your shit back when you get back to Europe, if you do. Okay, good deal. And the thing that was coolest to me was that what he did was give them stipends to pay for supplies and footed the bill, basically, in advance. But they could only buy supplies from Byzantine markets, which were marked up significantly because of the People's Crusade. So any money he gave, he was also getting back, because this guy was apparently a brilliant politician, and everyone else was dumb, I guess, because they couldn't figure out, like, oh, he's just giving us money to give him back. Why wouldn't you just give us a loan? All right, dude, if you want. Now, the politics of this game were really, they were almost, I wouldn't say they're feudalist, but they're just, it's like House of Cards. The whole dude in the middle of this is Emperor Alexius. And no one wanted, like, he didn't want to take control. He wanted what's it called? I forget. Shit. Plausible deniability. That's what he wanted. Because Kajik Arslan, who was the leader of Turkey at the time, he was pretty powerful. He was declaring himself the Sultan of New Rome, basically. So he pulled up, and they had gotten jacked a few years earlier. So Alexius didn't want shit to do with the Turks. And he basically pawned off everyone else and said, yeah, you can pass through here. I'm going to have my army shepherd you, which he had some crusaders get into fights with his armies, which makes zero sense to me. Is, oh yeah, we're just kind of escorting you through our empire so you don't break shit like you did the last time. You know what? Those guys who are watching over their homeland, let's fight them, because they're our allies. And we don't like our allies, because they're assholes. They got to watch over us and shit, because we're in their homeland doing questionable shit. And they have the gall, the audacity to say, can we just, like, make sure you don't break shit? Honestly? Like, the last time some dude pulled up in here, they raided stores, like at least 12 people died. They were all dirty, like none of them took showers. There was rivers all over the place to bathe in. We offered them tickets to the bathhouse, but they're like, nah, man, miss me with that gay shit. I don't go into Roman bathhouses. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It's kind of hard to carry this whole show without Sam right now, because he was doing a huge part in giving me breaks to get to my notes, and he would give me time to get through all the information. Now, that's essentially the logistics and politics of this part of the crusade. There were 3 goals. Essentially, everyone wanted to visit the Holy Sepulchre. If you don't know what the Holy Sepulchre is, it's the most holy building in all of Jerusalem. It's pretty important to the Muslims and to the Christians. Not so sure if it's important to Judaism. Didn't look into it. That's on me. I'm a bad conspiracy theorist / historian. They're kind of not key to the story after the whole Rhineland massacres thing, so I just left it out because I'm still stuck on this book. It's so fucking long. Fun fact, the cross was just becoming a popular symbol. Didn't really exist in Christianity. Crucifixianity. It didn't exist until really the Crusades. They needed a symbol, they made it. So all the Crusaders wanted to go with a clear conscience. I don't know how clear of a conscience you can go with when you leave your family for war, specifically to not to defend anybody, but to persecute an entire race and religion, because, fuck them. The way that they did this most of the time was devotional donations again. The church knows how to get money, and they're doing it all day. I'm going to go back to page 76 here where I noted down something. They used the money to essentially pad their expense account and to start funding the crusade now. The problem is there's no real evidence that it shows anywhere that the church paid for the crusade. The expenses were basically all done by the princes who went to fight for the church. So if I'm analyzing this, the church is balling right now, like all kinds of money. They might be the richest entity since Rome, probably. Maybe even, I don't know if they challenged the Byzantine Empire. They might be on a similar footing now, which I think that's how the Holy Roman Empire came to be. So when I'm looking back at this, I just realized that they're getting all kinds of money and not having to pay anything. So that's pretty smart politics, if you ask me. I'm going to take notes about this for when I suddenly go into politics with my questionable lawyers, and I go and make deals with people for favors while I'm a cabinet position. Don't worry about me. I was watching that thing earlier today, and I had a debate with a family member. Now, the problem with sending 600,000 people to any region was that 600,000 people eat a lot of fucking food. So the crusade was essentially hand to mouth. The only supply networks were established by the Byzantines and Bohemond, because he had experience in the region. And the crusade followed, once they crossed the Bosphorus, the Roman road of Belgrade, or Roman road to Belgrade, eventually ending up at Nicaea. Now, I don't have enough information to get through the siege of Antioch as well, but we're going to talk about the military composition of the Byzantine Empire, the military composition of the Turks, and the military composition of the Crusaders, which we talked about, but it's going to need a little bit more explanation. So the Byzantine Empire was mostly a mercenary army. It was Vikings, known as the Varangian Guard, that was like the equivalent to the Praetorian Guard of Rome. They were the emperor's special bodyguards. They were essentially the most accomplished champions. If you were an infantryman in this time, just put yourself in the situation. You have some really rough canvas clothes. You don't have any pants. You don't have any shoes. The last thing you ate was like a stick. And some guy comes up to you and he's like, "Hey, you want to join the military? You look like you could use some food." And you're like, "You know what? This sounds like a pretty good deal." And you suddenly find out that you're really good at fucking killing, especially with an axe and a spear. Yeah, shields you don't like because you know, shields are for bitches, but you get 2 axes instead of 1 shield and 1 axe, and you figure out that 2 axes basically doubles your effectiveness. Insane, right? Having more than 1 weapon makes you better at killing shit, especially if you're well trained in that weapon. Now, people start to notice this, you're like, damn, he's fucking people up all day. We don't go anywhere without this guy now. Someone's going to show up and be like, let's put him into a more specialized position. Let's see if he can go to the Varangian Guard. And you would basically go to do some type of trial, duel, some shit. The Emperor would maybe select you himself. It doesn't say specifically, but then you're on the Varangian Guard. Now, that was the only specific thing that's noted in this book about the military composition. Other than that, it's mostly just Greek and Viking soldiers, which honestly, I was shocked to hear that there's Viking soldiers in basically the Balkans. Like, how'd you get that far? I know you guys were a seafaring culture, but you guys really went that far? That's pretty deep and into Middle East and Europe to go, especially for someone who is of that much different of a cultural heritage. Now, the Turks, which I didn't know this before, Sultanate literally just means power. Yeah. So that's a thing. I'm trying to find the book here, or the page in the book here, but there was a dude who was essentially a proto Genghis Khan. His name was Tughril Beg. He led the Seljuk Turks, which is the main antagonist of this, the main antagonist victim, however you see it, of the First Crusade. And their army style was essentially proto-Mongols. I'm not sure when the Mongols were around. I can pull it up here. But they were all about cavalry rushes with lightly armored infantry. Now, they had one of 2 tactics, not very diverse. They had surround them and run away, wait for them to chase you, and then turn back around and stab them. Brilliant strategies. I'm on. Honestly, it's shocking. I've never heard of anything like that before. So probably I think we're only going to get to the Siege of Nicaea today. So I'll have to do an either extra long episode on next Tuesday or whatever. Honestly, getting the news that Sam has to move kind of threw me off for the week. I also have to announce that because I don't have to buy an extra camera for the time being, and Sam does have his own camera, I'm going to start doing video podcasts for Opinion Overload, basically with just myself. And I'm going to start posting them to YouTube so you guys can see what I look like and all that shit. When I get the cam or call recorder set up and Sam stabilizes himself in Mexico, which should be around July, late July, if he has time to start doing Skype call podcast, I'm going to try and do that because I don't want you guys to have to be away from the dynamic duo longer than necessary. I mean, I know I'm entertaining and charismatic and gorgeous, but you know, there's just something about that duo, right? It's like Batman and Robin. Was there ever a Mexican Robin? I wonder if there was a Mexican Robin. Okay, it's like Batman and Bane, but friends. Because, you know, Bane is smart as shit and Batman's smart as shit and they're good. It's fucking whatever. You know what I'm talking about. So, and now I forgot what I was talking about. The Mongols. When did the Mongols show up? So yeah, the Seljuk Turks were basically proto-Mongols. The Mongols showed up around 1206 to 1368. Yeah, this is really probably where that idea came from. Now, there's a map in here that shows the route of the Crusades. Anatolia, which is Turkey, there's 2 cities beforehand. So after Constantinople, you would go to Nicomedia, which is where all the Crusaders decided they were going to camp out at. Civitat is where the People's Crusade got fucked. And surprisingly, Peter the Hermit is still just rolling around the Middle East. Like, I don't think he'll be welcome there, but sure, he's out there doing his thing. Good on the guy. I mean, horrendous failure. I forget the word. I'm forgetting a lot of words lately. I should probably get some new tropics. Overestimated his army and then got wrecked. So the Siege of Nicaea is honestly it's the official beginning of the Crusade. It's the first actual battle that worked and was fought between the second wave of Crusaders and the Turks. So Robert of Flanders, Godfrey of Bouillon, Godfrey of Soup, and Hugh of Vermandois, Godfrey's brother, I believe, they pulled up and like, you know what, guys, let's camp right outside the city, because why not? What could go wrong? It's not like the Turks are renowned for their archers and could probably kill us reasonably easily. They did this. Peter the Hermit was there. He was happy he wasn't going back through the way he went through Civito, because the people who went there said, oh yeah, just dead skeletons everywhere. It's rough. The sand, bones. Glass, bones. Dirt, bones. You can't grow anything here. Actually, you might be able to, because the bones, they turn up into meal, fertilizer. I don't know if it's actually a thing, so I only know about bone meal from Minecraft. It's been like 12 years since I played it. 27. It's been 67 years since I played Minecraft last, honestly, guys. Even these Crusaders were unprepared for war. There was no coordination with the Emperor. He just told them, adios, get out of my crib, go fight your war. If you guys fail, it wasn't my responsibility. And none of the crusading princes established a plan of action. Kind of shocking, right? You would think, we're about to go wage this major war against our biggest enemy we have, this death-sworn enemy, the Muslims. Let's plan, guys. That's like if you go in the group chat, nothing gets done. You're like, hey, you guys want to go get some dinner on Thursday? One dude says, yeah. The other guy says, nah. 2 people just ignore you. Then 3.5 other people, because, half persons, like the person who kind of doesn't use the group chat because they have an Android phone, but like you kind of include them. So, and then you can't name the group chat because of them, because they're selfish assholes who have Android. I do like Android better than iPhone. The only reason I don't use it is that they don't have the iMessage app. And I would absolutely get a Samsung if Apple sold the iMessage app for like $20 and I could use it to communicate with my friends. Now, the fact that there was no planning led to a bit of a problem. The only reason that the Crusaders didn't get fucked was because Arslan was not in the city at the time being. He left. Nicaea was the capital of the Turkish state. I believe it's a caliphate. At the Turkish caliphate at the time. And he decided that he was going to head east to deal with a minor border conflict, because the Crusaders didn't appear to be a big deal at the time. Huge fucking mistake. In case you didn't realize that already, 600,000 people pulling up at your border, you might want to build a wall. There was. The only reason that is the Middle East is so hard to fight in today is because literally every city is a fortress. Every church is a fortress, because that place has been embroiled in war for thousands of years. Now, this was the biggest disaster of Arslan's career. And interestingly enough, the Crusaders didn't exploit it. They waited till he got back to fight. I'm just going to let that sink in for a moment. You literally have a decapitation strike set up for you, and you just decide, nah, I'm not going to take that chance. The fact that they're leaderless right now, and that their leader would have to head back and likely let the border issue develop even more, which would make it a two-front war for him if we do this the right way, I don't think we should do that. You know, I really think we should wait, give him the chance to be an honorable leader, and use the tactics that would fuck our shit up horrendously when led correctly, as evidenced by the People's Crusade. We should let him get back, you know? Now, there was a problem. 600,000 people, 100,000 of them being combatants, is kind of a hard thing to deal with at one time. Because if you think about it this way, even if they're non-combatants, 500,000 of them, when people start dying, you can press them into service and be like, you know what? You are now combatants. And they're going to be like, no, I didn't sign up for that. Like, well, tough shit, dude. Your brother's dead. You better go get that shit and put it on before your family's in debt for the next 20,000 years. Are you telling me, bro, that you signed a malediction? You branded the cross onto your forehead. You're kidding me right now, right? You're going to tell me that the cross isn't to go on your forehead? You actually just wanted a tattoo, but there was no one else doing tattoos at the time. Well, you know what? I'm just going to tell you right now, I have your malediction clause right here. Yeah, they said that we weren't bringing the malediction clauses, but I brought them because I knew you were going to start some shit. And I knew that when your brother died, because he was going to, he wasn't really good at being a knight in the first place. Dude was really just a farmer that they put a fucking helmet on. That I would have to bring a malediction clause to keep you from deserting, because your cousin already deserted. He literally alive in hell right now. God didn't even kill him to smite him. Didn't even kill him. Literally just picked him up and threw him into hell like a frisbee. That dude's skipping across the lava right now like a rock. Okay, so that's how we got Timmy's brother to be a combatant from a non-combatant. The Siege of Nicaea was essentially a bunch of people being thrown at a fortified city. There's a description of the city in this book on page 121, if you're reading along in this book that I haven't named. Actually, I have named it, I think. Nicaea was a well-protected city by natural terrain and clever fortifications. Its natural defenses consist of a great lake lapping at its walls and a ditch brimful of runoff water from nearby streams, blocking the entrance on three sides. Skillful men had enclosed Nicaea with such lofty walls that the city feared neither the attack of enemies nor the force of any machine. So, basically, what they did is they put in one entry and one exit. It's really good if you're good at defending things. It's not good if someone gets in there. So, the issue with Nicaea especially was that beforehand, while Arslan was getting back, they tried to sabotage the crusade, and Turkish spies went in, they got caught, executed, and afterwards, Arslan gets back. He decides, you know what? Let's use tactic A today. Let's charge at them. And he's talking to his generals. You got to think about this. You got to put yourself in his mind. You got to think, if I'm this general, what am I going to do? Okay, guys, trust me, this shit is going to be brilliant. What if we charge at them? Okay, his generals are thinking like, oh, what's he going to say next? Is it going to be, are we just going to charge? Are we going to surround them maybe? And this is totally unexpected, right? What if we fake a retreat? We've never done that before. We didn't do that at a battle 12 years ago. We didn't do that last week when we were trying to fight this border war. Let's actually retreat. And then say, nah, that's some bullshit. We want to fight you guys. Once they get to a place that's suitable for us. Now, they fucked up. The problem is, if you feign a retreat, you have to lose ground. And in order to lose ground, that means your enemy can take it. So essentially what they did was pull up, and they tried to wait the Crusaders out. They decided that, they're short on food. That didn't work out. Bohemond was like, what's up, boys? I got some ships. We got some food now. And they're like, shit. Well, now we can't wait for them to starve. And about 7 days later, they laid siege to the city. Each army essentially was given a wall. And there was towers on each of them, guard towers, about, it says between 150 and 200. They basically waited at the gates and used some of their artillery weapons to just put shit on fire, blow shit up, break shit. Eventually, you have to fight. Now, the Byzantines pulled up, but they didn't fight. They put a camp at Pelicanum. He sent boats, rolled over the land. He helped the Crusaders blockade the lake that backed up Nicaea. And that lake was used to supply the city with food. So, as in any siege war, you cut off the lines of supply and you wait. You wait a little while. Now, it took until June 19th, and the Turks eventually surrendered. They realized that they weren't going to be winning this fight anytime soon. There's another dude in here named... his name's spelled two different ways. It's not Tatikios and Taticus. Now, apparently this guy was a G. He was a real gangster. He had his nose cut off, and he just put a metal nose on. He was like, no one's going to be able to tell the difference, dude. Honestly, look at this. This bright bronze thing. My skin, I don't know. He was in the Balkans. He's probably like African descent, most likely, Greek and African. Actually, it fucking says it right here. We do know what he was. He was... Damn. Half Arab, half Greek. So he's probably a little, bronze, copper skin. Let's put a silver nose on that shit. No one's going to be able to tell. I got it cut off. Silver. You know how balling up? Silver nose. Prosthetics? Silver. You don't know what's up, B. In short, basically, they laid siege to Nicaea. Turks surrendered. And afterwards, they decided that we're doing pretty good. 4,000 Turks died. We don't know how many Crusaders died. Doesn't really matter. There's 600,000 of them. It's kind of semantics to argue that. Like, they killed 4,000 people. They probably lost a minimal amount of soldiers, especially if it's a siege war. Now, after this, June 26th, the Crusades split into two groups. Bohemond and Robert of Flanders. Bohemond, Tancred, Robert of Flanders, and Taticus in the vanguard. Now, there's two different definitions of vanguard. As far as I know, it was the rear. Damn it, no, I don't want the investment group. I want the definition. It was the forefront of the army. See, the problem is there's people who define it as the forefront and the rear of the army. So they were the tip of the spear. Now, everyone else was just kind of there. They were moving, but they were slower, and they kind of just helped establish something in the route going on the once they headed to Antioch. So they're making better decisions here. Once they'd captured Nicaea, there was something they didn't mention in the politics about anything that the Crusaders captured didn't get to be theirs. They had made a deal with Alexius, and he said anything they captured would be brought back into the Roman Empire because he was trying to reform it. And honestly, they kind of got stuck because they didn't get a choice. Now, they tried with the siege of Antioch and the siege of Nicaea, but they didn't get to control any of that land. That's essentially it for today. I will be back on Thursday. afterwards, we're going to be finishing up the Crusade series, and I'll be getting the video set up. I'm going to keep you guys updated on the situation with Sam. He does have a camera, and we will be doing a content network for his journalism projects. But until then,